Greetings, fellow leaders from the African continent and across the world. It's always so lovely to host you here at Digital Earth Africa. Today is not a live session, but we thought we'd spend a little bit of time telling you more about the Digital Earth Africa story. My name is Maud Nale. I'm the communications lead at Digital Earth Africa. And today we are going to be talking about all things sustainable development goals. I'm sure you've heard this word for a few years now. In fact, in 2015, the United Nations adopted 17 goals to develop the world, and these went on to become the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. These goals align with the African Union's Agenda 2063, which is the African continent's long-term development plan. Now, a lot of progress has been made towards these SDGs, but there are still some gaps that remain, largely due to the fact that there are some persistent data gaps. This is where Digital Earth Africa comes in, because Earth observation represents a huge opportunity to fill this gap, and Digital Earth Africa, being African-owned and an African-led Earth observation institution, we are well positioned to support Africa's development agenda and growth towards realizing the SDGs. And so today, in what we're going to be calling an story map, where we get to share our story, we are going to explore how Digital Earth Africa platforms and tools are supporting sustainable development across the continent. I am so excited to introduce today's presenter, who's going to be telling us more about this. He is a consultant with DevGlobal Partners, who are a leading organization specializing in GIS, global health, and sustainable development services, and span across Africa, India, and the United States. Much of his work to date has focused around holistic and inclusive applications of geospatial technology that work to further global health and development programs. Through DevGlobal, he provides technical and creative GIS support to some of the world's leading nonprofits and NGOs, including Digital Earth Africa. I'm so excited to present onto the virtual stage our presenter for today. His name is Seamus Garrity from DevGlobal, and he is going to be talking about Digital Earth Africa and the SDGs. Seamus, the virtual stage is yours.
Thanks, Maud, for the introduction and a bit of background here to set me up. As mentioned, my name is Seamus Garrity, and I am going to spend some time today to chat about Digital Earth Africa and the Sustainable Development Goals, which also are referred to as the SDGs. I'm going to walk us through this Esri story map that you can see up on the screen, which demonstrates a lot of Digital Earth Africa's tools and services in respects to how they support and enable sustainable development in Africa and progress on the UN's SDGs. Quickly, I do want to mention that this story map is published online and accessible to you all with all sorts of interactive features and links to resources. The link that you can access it by just in your browser at home is up here, bit.ly/DEAfricaSDGs. I'm not going to have time to go through and highlight every Digital Earth Africa tool that supports the SDG goals in this presentation, but I am hoping that with an overview of the goals and in showcasing some of the tools, it will become evident the incredible resource and opportunity that EO poses for African development, and how Digital Earth Africa is really changing the way that scientists, governments, NGOs, industry leaders, people like you and me can tap into this resource and drive change. I encourage you all to take this introduction to the content and then dive into the story map on your own using the link that I provided as well once we're through. So the first goal I'm going to touch on is zero hunger. The goal itself, to end hunger, aligns with the central focus for a lot of governments across Africa, and that is to secure the food sources needed to support growing population. One way to do this is to use EO-based crop products, such as using satellite imagery to identify cropland extents, understand crop productivity, and measure crop health. One of the most important and baseline understandings needed to address food insecurity and hunger is to know where crops are growing, how much land is under cultivation, and understanding changes in patterns in growth on a large scale. Digital Earth Africa's cropland extent maps for Africa provide a continent-wide map of cropped land at a 10-meter resolution. You can see the continent-wide cropland extent map as I use this slider over a highly cultivated area near Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. You can pair this with a probability analysis to support the crop map findings, which is visualized over here on the left. Yellow, red, and orange signify higher probability of cropping, where purple and black signify lower probability. This and other analyses that I will be speaking to throughout this presentation were done in the Digital Earth Africa Sandbox, which is a free online computational platform that provides users access to data and analysis tools. This means that you, sitting at home, can access the same data and run the same analysis that I am showing you today. I'm not going to touch on it at depth, but I just wanted to flag that Digital Earth Africa's platform also enables the monitoring and measuring of crop health over time, the monitoring and measuring of crop health. And over time, this can give way to rich information on anomalies and long-term patterns and trends that shed light into many public health and economic indicators, such as measuring and predicting food price anomalies, which is one of the indicators of Zero Hunger, the second Sustainable Development Goal. Moving along now, let's look at water resources in Africa, which pertain to both SDG Goal 6 and 14, ensuring the availability and sustainable management of freshwater and saltwater resources. The big piece here that I want to touch on is Digital Earth Africa's water observations from space. This service translates years of satellite imagery into easily consumable information on the presence and location and recurrence of water within Africa. This allows users across Africa to map, assess, visualize, and manage water resources. Visible on this map is the Casamance River Delta in Senegal. Darker blue signifies increased water persistence, where lighter colors signify land covered by water over shorter periods of the year. For example, seasonal flooding. These data can be used as baseline inputs into other tools for purposes like monitoring drought, measuring water quality health, and supporting numerous SDG indicators. For example, Digital Earth Africa's wetland drought monitoring tool and seasonal water body extent tool, which provide insights into a wetland's seasonal and interannual dynamics. Seen here, the seasonal flooding and drying of Lake Korienzi, which is in Mali in the inner Niger Delta. You can watch in the figure as the water levels rise and fall, seemingly like a beating heart, which is what the lake in the inner Niger Delta symbolize to the surrounding area as water fluctuates in the wet season and then it dries out in the dry season. SDG 15 pertains to life on land and seeks to protect, restore, promote the sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems. As we all know, Africa is home to some of the world's most diverse ecosystems and possesses an incredible wealth of natural resources. Lack of accountability of effective monitoring and management of this natural capital has deprived many countries of the potential socioeconomic benefits of these resources. Digital Earth Africa has tools and a platform that can help. Here, seen as the continental land cover classification layer. This platform, so Digital Earth Africa's platform hosts continental-wide land cover and classification data sets, such as this World Cover 2020 land cover map. It classifies land into broad categories such as water, crops, or built urban areas. Conducting analysis on these data supports a range of land cover use cases, including change detection work, such as monitoring mangrove forests. Digital Earth Africa's mangrove analysis tool, which makes use of the Global Mangrove Watch's mangrove extent dataset, can be used to support efforts to monitor the changing extent of mangroves in Guinea-Bissau and countries across Africa. Performing the analysis on a coastal region of Guinea-Bissau that is depicted in the main map over here in orange shows clear trends of mangrove loss. You can see as I open up this window, pink signifies areas where mangroves have been lost since the baseline year of 1996. Tan areas show where the population of mangroves has remained stable or consistent, and then green shows where the population has actually increased. Another example is with mining and resource extraction. So Digital Earth Africa's surface mining screening tool provides a way for governments and specialists to monitor areas where mining activity is underway and then respond accordingly. An example of the tool's output over the Apamprama Forest Reserve in Ghana can be seen here. You can see from the years 2017 to 2022 the loss of the reserve to this mining that's underway, and you can see here as well in this automated GIF. Now, SDG goal 9 and 11 work more with built and urban environments. The goal is to build more resilient infrastructure to promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and to foster innovation. So, what does that look like? Land use mapping and tracking industry. Similar to how the continental land cover classification dataset, which I just spoke to in the last section, can support the monitoring of forests or land degradation in the case of mining, they can also be used to do urban land use mapping and to monitor and evaluate urban development, like what we can see here in Nairobi. Another example, and this one is kind of a fun one, but Digital Earth Africa actually has a radar ship detection tool that can be utilized to detect where ships appear over time, allowing users to highlight the presence of shipping lanes and even monitor illicit shipping activity offshore. This example shows a visualization from the tool during the Ever Given shipping accident that occurred in, I believe it was 2021 on the Suez Canal, the one where the large container ship crashed sideways and blocked the canal for nearly a week. This image from March shows ships lined up in the bay as they wait for the canal to be cleared. The little green dots against the blue you can see clearly, and the blue is the water, and this other green is the land, but you can see the ships as kind of speckled into the bay. Opening up this second example, monitoring this sort of stuff over time can actually shed light onto shipping lanes where boats frequently anchor while waiting for access to the canal. So similar to some of those other use cases where you analyze the data over time and you can start to see patterns and trends emerge and see clearly where the ships are anchored as they wait to get back onto the main shipping lane through the canal. Moving into this next example, we have climate action. And so this is one of the last one that I'll speak to in detail, and it's SDG Goal 13, which aims at taking urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. The urgency to act, right, is clear, and more than 40 African states have already revised their national climate plans, making them more ambitious and adding greater commitments to climate adaptation and mitigation. Digital Earth Africa's suite of tools, as with the other goals, can support these critical decisions surrounding climate policy and allow for thorough real-time monitoring and evaluation of these policies' impact. A couple examples include burnt area mapping. With Digital Earth Africa's burnt area mapping tool, it's possible to track and monitor these fires in real time, as well as assess the damage that they have caused after they have been extinguished or put out. Digital Earth Africa's Coastal Monitoring Service, another example with coastal erosion, is a really a great example to demonstrate the impact of EO on sustainable development and combating climate change. Over 40% of the world's population lives within 100 kilometers of a coastline. Our coasts are often the first line of defense against climate change, rising sea levels, and intensifying storms. Digital Earth Africa's Coastline Monitoring Service can help local decision makers and government officials collect this data and make informed decisions in their monitoring and mitigation efforts. This example here over the Sali Portudal, which is a resort town in Senegal. The town recently installed breakwaters in efforts to stop the beach erosion that has been impeding on the oceanfront properties. Colored lines represent the change over time. The black line, representing the most recent year of data, shows that the breakwaters have actually reduced coastal erosion in some places along the shoreline. Providing this near real-time feedback and monitoring and evaluation data is critical for a lot of these programs. To round us out, I'm just going to take my last couple of moments talking about goals 17 and 5 in relation to the Digital Earth in relation to Digital Earth Africa, which have to do with partnership and inclusion. International, regional, and local partnership is critical for achieving any of the SDGs outlined in this story map. All members of society must work together to turn these goals into realities. Digital Earth Africa has over 30 on-continent and international partners, including industry leaders such as Esri and Amazon World Services, which is what the Sandbox and other platforms run on. These partners and organizations believe in the Digital Earth Africa platform and the impact that it can have on the African continent. Building these thriving technical, strategic, and delivery partnerships is a priority for Digital Earth Africa, enabling and activating a continent-wide community that creates sustained capability for Earth observation and sustainable development in Africa. Embedded in this partnership is an ongoing effort to drive gender equality, diversity, and social inclusion through partnership and support of women in the EO field. Here you can see a quick partnership spotlight that actually shows a recent Digital Earth Africa project in partnership with the State University of Zanzibar that was actually awarded an SDG award for climate action at GeoWeek in 2020, which is pretty cool. So the story map here pretty much ends with links out to the platform and resources. We have the Digital Earth Africa map, the Sandbox, which I've been referencing, as well as the GitHub that has a repository of all the code and a lot of the tools that I demonstrated today in this story map and presentation. I think with that, I'll hand it back over to Maud, but thank you all for your time today. And yeah, please follow up with any questions you may have.
Thank you once again, Seamus, to you for such an interactive presentation. As Digital Earth Africa, we've been working with our partners across the African continent and the world to support SDGs, and the work is not yet done. We'll continue telling our story as this unfolds, but I want to encourage you to go and deconstruct this video, share it with your networks. We're going to drop it in the description below. You can also interact with the written version of this, and let us do our part as a community to support the long-term development of our continent. As Digital Earth Africa, we never want to leave any of our sessions without giving you an invitation to interact with us. So on the screen, you are going to see all the ways that you can do so. You can log onto our website, www.digitalearthafrica.org. You can also email us info@digitalearthafrica.org. We're also on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, as well as YouTube by the same name, Digital Earth Africa. And if you're on our YouTube channel, please do subscribe if you haven't yet already. Click the bell notification so that you're notified when we drop our next video. It's been an absolute honor bringing you something different for a change. We do host live sessions right here on our YouTube channel, so please look out for that next week when we will host our next one. We do it in English and in French, so whichever you are, we will definitely have you covered. Until we meet again, please take care and be safe, and depending on where you're joining us from across the continent and the world, have yourself a very good morning, good afternoon, a good evening, and good night. Until next week.